If I had taken the elevator instead of the stairs, I never would have opened the wrong door, and my life would have stayed ordinary. The first time Tyler pounded on my hotel room door, I told myself it was a mistake. Maybe some drunk guest had the wrong floor. Maybe the universe hadn't followed me all the way to Chicago. But then he said my name through the wood, low and angry, and every nerve in my body turned to ice. "Claire," he called, too calm, which was always worse. "I know you're in there." My breath caught so hard it hurt. The cheap lamp beside the bed threw a weak yellow glow across the carpet, over my half-zipped duffel bag, over the room service tray I hadn't touched. I'd driven almost 300 miles that day with my phone turned off, my shoulders locked, my coffee gone cold before noon. I thought if I disappeared for one night, just one, I could think clearly. I thought distance might make him stop. I should have known better. Tyler never stopped. The pounding came again, louder this time, rattling the frame. My pulse jumped into my throat. I looked at the deadbolt, at the chain latch, at the thin door that suddenly felt like paper. "Open the door," he said. "We need to talk." Need. Talk. Two harmless words that had learned how to wear a threat. I backed away from the bed, my sneakers soundless on the carpet, and grabbed my purse with shaking hands. The room felt too small, too hot. The air conditioner hummed in the window like nothing was wrong. Outside, somewhere far below, a siren wailed and disappeared into the city night. Tyler hit the door again, and I flinched so hard my elbow knocked the ice bucket off the dresser. It crashed onto the floor with a metallic clang that made my stomach drop. Silence followed. Then I heard his voice, closer now, almost smiling. "There you are." I didn't think after that. I just moved. I yanked open the door to my room and ran barefoot into the hallway, my purse slamming against my hip, my heart beating so hard I could hear it over the patterned hush of the hotel carpet. The hallway lights were dimmed for the night, all gold shadows and polished brass, every door identical, every second too loud. Behind me, Tyler's door opened. "Claire." I didn't look back. At the far end of the hall, one suite door stood slightly ajar, a thin line of darkness between the frame and the lock, as if someone had forgotten to shut it all the way. I went for it without thinking, my hand slipping on the cool brass handle before I forced it open and stumbled inside. I reached back instantly, pushed the door closed, and pressed my spine against it, trying to quiet my breathing. The suite was dark except for city lights spilling through a wall of windows. It smelled like leather, expensive cologne, and something sharper underneath, something metallic that didn't belong. For one blessed second, I thought I'd made it. Then a man's voice cut through the darkness, low and steady and far too close. "If you scream," he said, "he'll hear you." I froze. Across the room, half in shadow on a cream-colored sofa, a man in a white dress shirt sat leaning forward, one hand braced against his side, his other hand holding a gun with terrifying stillness. Even in the dark, I could see the stains spreading across his shirt. Blood. My mouth went dry. He lifted his eyes to mine, cold green and painfully alert, and I understood three things at once. I had opened the wrong suite. The man in front of me was dangerous, and somehow, he was the safer choice. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. My fingers tightened around the strap of my purse until the leather bit into my palm, and all I could do was stare at the gun in his hand and the dark stains soaking through the white fabric at his side. Somewhere out in the hallway, I heard footsteps pass, then fade, followed by the soft ding of an elevator. The man on the sofa did not look away from me. He had the kind of face people would call handsome in safer circumstances. Sharp cheekbones, dark hair falling slightly out of place, a jaw clenched hard enough to hint at pain he refused to show. But it was his eyes that kept me frozen. Calm, watchful, unreadable, like he had already measured every thread in the room and decided whether I belonged on the list. "Who are you?" I whispered. His mouth curved, but there was no humor in it. "That is the wrong question." He shifted, just enough for a tight breath to leave him, and I saw the effort it cost. "The better question is whether your boyfriend is still outside that door." Ex-boyfriend, I wanted to say, as if the distinction mattered. As if Tyler had ever respected the word no once he decided it inconvenienced him. I swallowed and pressed my ear toward the door without moving my feet. The hallway beyond had gone quiet, but not the comforting kind. The waiting kind. "He followed me here," I said, hating how small my voice sounded. "Then we share a problem." His tone stayed even, controlled, but his knuckles were pale around the grip of the gun. Lock the door. I blinked. What? The deadbolt, Claire. The sound of my name in his voice sent a chill down my spine. How do you know my name? He gave a slight nod toward the purse clutched against my chest. My driver's license was half visible in the clear pocket of my wallet, which I had shoved in there carelessly at a gas station outside Joliet. Heat rose to my face. I turned the lock with shaking hands, slid the security latch into place, then stepped back again. He watched every movement like he expected me to bolt, scream, or do something equally stupid. Now the phone, he said. On the table. No, the answer came faster than fear. If I set my phone down, I would have nothing. No map, no emergency call, no tiny illusion of control. One dark eyebrow lifted. You are either brave or reckless. You are the one holding a gun. And you are the one who ran into a stranger's suite at midnight. He was right, which made me hate him a little on instinct. I pulled the phone from my coat pocket anyway, keeping it in my hand. No signal bars. Of course not. The suite was too high up, the walls too thick, or maybe the universe was simply in a cruel mood. I am calling 911, I said, though I did not press anything. No, you are not. His voice dropped, softer somehow, which made it more dangerous. If police walk into this room tonight, you do not get your normal life back. You become a witness, a statement, a target. I stared at him. A target from who? He held my gaze for one long second, then looked down at the blood on his shirt as if that answered everything. My mouth went dry all over again. In the silence, the suite seemed to sharpen around us. The low hum of hidden air vents. The glow of the skyline through the glass. The faint scent of smoke clinging to his jacket draped across the chair nearby. I should have run. I should have found another door, another hallway, another bad option. Instead, I heard myself ask, "Are you going to pass out?" Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe. Not if you stop staring and help me. I did not move right away. Maybe because every survival instinct I had was arguing with every other one. Help the bleeding stranger with the gun? Terrible idea. Refuse the bleeding stranger with the gun? Possibly worse. He watched the debate happen on my face and let out a slow breath that sounded expensive and exhausted at the same time. There is a medical kit in the bathroom, he said. Top drawer. And if I go in there and you shoot me? I asked. Then this conversation becomes very inconvenient for both of us. I should not have noticed that I almost smiled. I hated that I almost smiled. Keeping my eyes on him, I edged toward the bathroom, every step careful, as if the carpet itself might betray me. The suite was larger than my entire apartment back in Indianapolis. Dark wood, cream walls, a dining table set for two that no one had touched, a bottle of champagne resting in silver ice that had begun to melt. The whole place looked polished and quiet, like it had been designed for people who never ran and never hid. I found the bathroom, flicked on the light, and stopped for half a second at the sight of all that cold white marble and gold hardware, spotless and gleaming beneath recessed lighting. The top drawer held exactly what he said it would. A hotel medical kit, upgraded for wealthy people who apparently expected emergencies to arrive in style. Gauze, antiseptic wipes, tape, bandages, small scissors. I grabbed everything and came back out with my arms full. He had not moved much, but the effort of staying upright was showing now in the tightness around his mouth. The gun rested lower in. His hand, still ready, still there. Set it on the table, he said. Then come here. You do not sound like a man asking for help. I am not used to asking. That, for some reason, felt honest. I placed the supplies on the glass coffee table and approached slowly until I stood in front of him. Up close, the room narrowed around details I had not seen from the door. A silver watch at his wrist, a faint line of stubble along his jaw, the expensive black dress shirt abandoned on the armchair nearby, as if he had taken it off in a hurry. His white shirt was unbuttoned at the collar and dark with blood near his ribs, but the injury did not look wild or chaotic. It looked controlled in the worst possible way, like the kind of damage that came with secrets and men who spoke too softly. What happened to you? I asked. His gaze lifted to mine. You ask too many questions for someone in your position, and you answer too few for someone asking me to touch a wound. For the first time, real surprise crossed his face. Then, just as quickly, it was gone. Fair, he said quietly. It is not as bad as it looks. That is what every stubborn man says before fainting. I do not faint. You look flexible on that point. A sound escaped him then, not quite a laugh, but close enough to make the room feel stranger than before. Less like prey and predator. More like two people standing on the edge of something neither of them had planned. I knelt beside the sofa and opened the antiseptic wipes with trembling fingers. I am Claire Bennett, I said, because saying my own name felt like reclaiming one small thing. I know, he said. That is still not your name. He held my gaze another second before saying, Adrian. Just Adrian. No last name. No explanation. I touched the clean gauze to his side as carefully as I could, and he went still, not flinching, not complaining, just watching me with those impossible green eyes as if I were either the worst mistake of his night or the only useful thing left in it. Then his phone lit up on the table behind him, vibrating once against the glass, and the look on his face turned cold. Enough to stop my breath. The screen showed only 2 words. They know. The phone kept vibrating against the glass table, a thin, sharp sound that seemed too small for the way Adrian's entire expression changed around it. A second ago he had looked controlled, tired, dangerous in a contained way. Now he looked like the room had just tilted beneath him, and he was the only one who knew how far the fall went. Who knows? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He did not answer right away. He picked up the phone, read the message again, then set it face down with deliberate care that felt more alarming than panic would have. We are out of time, he said. That is not an answer. No, his eyes lifted to mine. It is the only one that matters. I stayed where I was, kneeling beside the sofa with blood on my hands that was not mine and questions multiplying faster than I could sort them. Outside the suite, the hallway remained quiet, but now the silence felt staged, like the kind that came right before something opened, right before someone knocked. Tell me what is happening, I said. I cannot help you if I do not know what I am standing in. He studied me for a second that felt much longer, as if deciding whether honesty was a luxury he could still afford. Someone I trusted made a mistake, he said at last. Or a choice. I have not decided which word I prefer. And now they know I am still alive. The calm way he said it made my skin go cold. I looked toward the locked door, then back at him. Who is they? Men who do not knock twice. That is not helpful. It is accurate. He pushed himself up from the sofa before I could stop him, one hand braced against his side, the other still holding the gun with infuriating steadiness. For one awful second I thought he might collapse, but he stayed on his feet, tall and sharp, and somehow even more dangerous standing. He crossed the room slowly, favoring one side, and reached into the inside pocket of the black jacket hanging over the chair. When he turned back, he had a second phone in his hand. Burner phone, I thought automatically, because apparently this night had decided. Every terrible instinct in me deserved to be right. He pressed one number and waited. Luca, he said when the line connected. His voice changed, hardening into something colder, cleaner. Do not come to the front entrance. Use service access only. Bring Daniel. No one else. A pause. Because I said so. Another pause, and then his eyes flicked to me. And clear the 7th floor. He hung up before I could ask who Luca was, or why clearing an entire hotel floor sounded possible for him. You cannot just tell people to clear a floor, I said. Watch me. He moved toward the windows, parted the curtain a fraction, and glanced down at the glittering city below. Chicago stretched out in silver and gold, beautiful and indifferent, traffic threading through the streets like nothing was wrong. I had never felt smaller. My ex is out there, I said, hearing the crack in my own voice now. Tyler is still looking for me. Adrian let the curtain fall back into place. Then tonight he is the least dangerous man hunting this hallway. I stared at him. That is supposed to make me feel better? No, he turned fully toward me again. It is supposed to make you listen. And then, as if the night had been waiting for its cue, 3 soft knocks landed on the suite door. Not loud, not rushed. Precise. Polite, almost. Adrian's face went still. Do not move, he said quietly. And whatever happens next, Claire, do not open that door. The 3 knocks came again. Same rhythm, same impossible politeness, and that somehow made them worse. I stayed kneeling beside the sofa, every muscle locked, while Adrian moved with a control that did not match the blood on his shirt or the strain in his breathing. He did not rush. He crossed to the entryway table, switched off the lamp near the bar, and let the suite fall deeper into shadow. The skyline still glowed through the windows, throwing the room into silver edges and dark corners. I could hear my own heartbeat now, hard and uneven, loud enough to feel embarrassing. Adrian glanced at me once. That was all. But in that one look, I understood exactly what he meant. Stay down. Stay quiet. Trust nothing. Mr. Vale? A man's voice called softly through the door. Wrong name, I thought instantly. Fake name. Hotel. Name. Front desk. We received a noise complaint. Adrian's expression did not change, but something sharpened in it. He stepped closer to the door without making a sound and looked through the peephole for less than a second before drawing back. That is not hotel staff, he said, so low I barely heard him. My throat tightened. How can you tell? Because hotel staff do not wear earpieces with room service. Another knock. Then a pause. Then, from farther down the hallway, a voice I knew too well called my name. Claire. My whole body flinched before I could stop it. Tyler. Close. Too close. Adrian's eyes cut to me immediately, and I hated that he had seen the fear on my face. Hated even more that he understood it. He found the floor? I whispered. Yes. You say that like it is weather. Panic later, he said. Think now. Easy for him to say. He was not the one whose past kept finding her in hotel hallways and parking lots, and every place she tried to start over. Then again, standing in that suite with strangers at one side of the door and Tyler somewhere beyond them. Maybe he was exactly that person in a different suit. Adrian motioned toward the bedroom alcove. There is a connecting service corridor behind the wardrobe wall. I stared at him. There is a what? Luxury hotels are built for discretion. That is the creepiest sentence I have ever heard. It is also useful. Go. I did not move. What about you? A shadow of impatience crossed his face. I am not leaving through a laundry passage. Because you are too proud? Because if they see me run, this becomes a chase. If they think I am still in here, I control the timing. He said it like a fact, not ego, and somehow that was worse. Another knock landed, firmer now. Tyler's voice again, closer, angrier. Claire, I know you are in there. My mouth went dry. Adrian stepped in front of me then, not touching me, just blocking my line to the door in a way that felt deliberate and absolute. Listen carefully, he said. If the service corridor is clear, keep moving until you reach the south stairwell. Do not use the elevator. My men will meet you on level 6. Your men? Luca knows what you look like. That is not comforting. It is not supposed to be. For one strange second, the room narrowed to just him. The white shirt dark at his side. The green eyes that never seemed to blink enough. The steady way he carried pain like it was an inconvenience instead of a wound. I realized then that I still did not know his last name. Still did not know what exactly he was to the city outside those windows. And yet I trusted his voice more than I trusted the one calling for me through the door. How will I know it is really your people? I asked. Adrian reached into his pocket and pulled out a heavy signet ring, black onyx set in silver, and pressed it into my palm. It was warm from his skin. Show them this, he said. And Claire. The knock stopped. The silence that followed was unbearable. I looked up at him, and his expression had gone very still. If I tell you to run, he said quietly, do not look back. My fingers closed around the ring so tightly the edges pressed little half-moons into my skin. Black onyx. Silver band. Heavy enough to feel like a promise or a warning. Maybe both. Adrian turned away from me before I could say anything else and crossed to the wall beside the wardrobe. What I had assumed was decorative paneling shifted under his hand with a soft click, revealing a narrow door I never would have noticed on my own. Beyond it, a dim service corridor stretched into darkness, lit by a single recessed bulb that buzzed faintly overhead. The air smelled different there. Cleaner. Colder. Like detergent and steel and secrets. Go, Adrian said. I stepped toward the opening, then stopped. I am not leaving you with all of that at the door. You are not staying either. You are injured. Still true whether you stand here or not. There was no time to argue, and still I did. Maybe because fear had always made me stubborn. Maybe because he had become real to me in the worst possible way, not just a man with a weapon and a dangerous voice, but a person bleeding through a white shirt while somehow remaining the calmest one in the room. You do not even know if your men made it into the building, I said. I know enough. That is not the same thing. He looked at me then, and something unguarded flashed across his face. Not softness exactly, more like exhaustion stripped of performance. Claire, he said quietly, The only reason we are still having this conversation is because you did not panic when you saw blood. Do not choose now to become unreasonable. I should have been offended. Instead, absurdly, I wanted to laugh. I was standing in a hidden corridor inside a luxury hotel suite with a man who looked like power dressed for midnight, and he was calling me unreasonable like we were in an ordinary disagreement over dinner plans. The thought vanished as Tyler's voice rose again through the hallway outside, sharper now. I know you are in there with someone. Shame hit me first. Hot, immediate, familiar. Then anger rose behind it, quieter and stronger. I was so tired of being afraid in public and humiliated in private. So tired of shrinking my whole life down to avoid setting off someone else's temper. Adrian must have seen something change in my face because his gaze sharpened. Do not let him make you careless. He has been doing that for 2 years. The words slipped out before I could stop them. His expression did not soften, but it changed, became more focused, more personal. Then let tonight be the last. Before I could answer, a new sound cut through the suite. Not knocking this time. The electronic chirp of a hotel key card hitting the lock. Once, then again. Adrian went very still. Every line of him tightened, not with fear, but with readiness. They have access now, he said. Move. Adrian. Now. I stepped backward into the corridor, the ring cold in my palm, my pulse pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. He reached behind the panel and handed me his second phone. If Luca answers, say only your name. Nothing else. And if it is not Luca, then hang up. I took the phone, and our fingers brushed for the briefest second. His hand was warm. Steady. Mine was neither. Another electronic chirp came from the front door. Then Tyler's voice, louder than before. Claire, open the door. You are making this worse. Adrian's mouth hardened. He has no idea what worse looks like. There was no bragging in the words. Just fact. He started to close the hidden panel, and panic surged so suddenly I caught the edge before it shut. Wait. He looked at me through the narrow gap. The dim corridor light cut one side of his face into shadow and silver, making him look less like a man and more like the dangerous kind of decision people regretted too late. What? He asked. I did not know why this was the question that came out. Maybe because the night had stripped away every polite instinct I had left. What is your last name? For the first time since I had seen him, really seen him, something almost like a smile touched his mouth. Romano, he said. Then his eyes locked on mine, green and unwavering. Remember it when my men find you. The panel slid shut between us, and a second later, from the suite beyond, I heard the door handle finally turn. The dark closed around me like a held breath. For a second I could not move at all. I just stood in that narrow service corridor with Adrian's burner phone in one hand and his ring in the other, listening to the muffled sounds on the other side of the wall. A door opening. Footsteps. A man speaking too politely. Tyler's voice cutting through it all, rougher now, impatient, too familiar. I hated that I knew the exact tone he used when he thought he was about to win. My pulse hammered so hard it made the dim hallway seem to flicker. Move, I told myself. Move now. I forced my feet forward. The corridor was barely wide enough for a housekeeping cart. All industrial gray walls and exposed hinges, a hidden vein running behind the luxury and silk and polished wood of the suite. Every few yards there was another service door, each one painted the same dull color, each one closed. The hotel I could not afford from the front looked completely different from the inside. Not glamorous, not grand, just practical and quiet and built for people who were never supposed to be seen. I had made it maybe 20 feet when the burner phone vibrated in my hand, so suddenly I nearly dropped it. The screen lit up with an unknown number. My stomach tightened. I answered anyway and pressed it to my ear. Claire Bennett, I whispered. Silence met me first, then a man's voice low and steady. Keep walking. I stopped breathing for half a beat. Luca. Yes. He did not waste a word. Do not use the first stairwell. Continue to the red service door at the end of the corridor. Turn left. Daniel will meet you there. I started moving again, faster now. Adrian, I asked before I could stop myself. Another pause. He is standing, Lucas said. That means he is angry. Keep walking. The call ended. I stared at the dark screen for half a second, then shoved the phone into my coat pocket and kept going. My sneakers made almost no sound on the rubberized floor, but every tiny noise still felt amplified. The buzz of fluorescent lights, the faint rattle of vent covers, the pounding of my own heartbeat. Behind the wall to my right, somewhere inside the suite I had just left, voices rose and blurred. I could not make out words, only tones. Sharp, controlled, dangerous in a way that never needed volume. Then, all at once, silence dropped so heavily I stopped short. It was the same kind of silence as before, the waiting kind. I hated that I was beginning to recognize it. I reached the red door at the end of the corridor and grabbed the metal push bar. It opened into another narrow passage lined with fresh linens, stacked towels, and a housekeeping cart abandoned beside a utility sink. The air smelled like bleach and starch, cleaner than fear, less honest. I turned left just like Luca had said and almost collided with a man stepping out of the shadows ahead. I stumbled back with a sharp breath, fingers tightening around the ring in my palm. He was broad-shouldered, wearing a dark suit with no tie, his posture too straight for hotel staff and too calm for a stranger. He held up one hand immediately. "Daniel," he said, "show me your right hand." I did. The ring sat in my open palm, black stone catching the weak overhead light. The man's expression changed at once. Not softer, sharper, more respectful. He dipped his head once. "Miss Bennett, you know my name too?" I asked, breathless. Mr. Romano does not leave details to chance. The answer should not have sent a strange warmth through me in the middle of all that fear, but it did. Daniel stepped closer, careful not to crowd me. He looked to be in his early 30s, clean-cut, alert, the kind of man who noticed exits before furniture. "We need to move," he said. "The south stairwell is clear for now." For now. He glanced back the way he had come. There has been a change in the hallway. What kind of change? Before he could answer, a door slammed somewhere behind us, echoing through the service corridor like a warning shot from the building itself. Daniel's jaw tightened. Then Tyler's voice rang out again, farther away but unmistakable. "Claire." Daniel looked at me, and for the first time there was urgency in his expression. "The kind," he said quietly, "where Mr. Romano was right not to let you face this alone." Daniel moved first, and I followed because there was nothing else to do. He pushed open the stairwell door with one hand and guided me inside with the other held slightly out, not touching, just directing. The heavy metal door shut behind us with a dull thud that seemed to seal off one nightmare and lead me straight into another. The stairwell was concrete and echoing, lit by harsh white lights that flattened everything into angles and shadows. 6 floors down, I could hear the faint hum of the hotel still living its polished life. Isinglasses, soft music, elevator chimes. Somewhere above us, hidden behind marble and velvet and million-dollar views, the night had cracked open, and almost no one would ever know. "Keep to the inside rail," Daniel said quietly. "If anyone opens a landing door, do not speak unless I tell you." I nodded, though I was not sure he saw it. My throat had gone too tight for words anyway. We started down. Level 7 to 6. 6 to 5. My legs felt shaky now that I was moving, the delayed reaction hitting all at once. Too much adrenaline. Too little air. Too many moments in too little time. At the landing between 5 and 4, Daniel paused so abruptly I nearly ran into him. He lifted one finger without looking back. "Listen." I did. At first I heard nothing except the rattle of the air vent and the rush of blood in my ears. Then, faintly, the sound of a door opening one floor above us. Voices. Male. One calm. One irritated. Neither Daniel's. He looked over the railing, then back at me. "We are changing route." "Is that bad?" I whispered. "It means they are thinking ahead." He led me back up half a flight, pushed through the door to level 5, and into another service hall even narrower than the first. This one smelled like fresh paint and industrial cleaner. The carpet here was rolled up at one end, exposing strips of unfinished floor. We passed an open storage room with stacked banquet chairs and silver serving trays gleaming under fluorescent lights like pieces of some elegant life I had never belonged to. "Who are these people?" I asked, my voice thin in the empty hall. Daniel did not answer right away. The kind who assumed Mr. Romano should be easier to bury than replace. The words landed hard. "And Tyler." Daniel's expression did not change, but his jaw tightened. "Your former boyfriend has made several very poor decisions tonight." I almost laughed, except nothing about it was funny. That is a diplomatic way to say it. "I am trying not to alarm you. That ship sailed when I found Adrian bleeding in a dark suite." Daniel glanced at me then, quick in assessing, and for the first time I saw the smallest flash of surprise. You called him Adrian. That is what he told me to call him. Interesting. I was too tired and too frightened to unpack why that sounded significant. We turned another corner, and suddenly the hallway widened into an unmarked service lobby with 2 freight elevators and a bank of security monitors mounted behind a desk. The screens showed different parts of the hotel in grainy black and white. Ballroom entrance. Loading dock. East elevators. 7th floor hallway. My feet stopped moving before I could help it. On the screen marked 7 East corridor, I saw the suite door I had run into less than half an hour earlier. 2 men in dark jackets stood outside it, still and waiting. A third figure was farther back near the elevator bank. Tyler. Even in black and white, I knew the shape of his shoulders, the way he paced 2 steps and stopped, as if anger itself kept him on a leash. My stomach twisted. Then another man stepped into the frame from the opposite end of the hall. Taller, broader, dark suit, controlled stride. Even on a silent security screen, Adrian Romano looked like the kind of man who changed the temperature of a room just by entering it. Daniel swore softly under his breath. What? I asked. His eyes stayed fixed on the monitor. He was supposed to hold position until Luca reached him. My mouth went dry. On the screen, Adrian stopped in the center of the hallway, one hand near his side, shoulders square, expression unreadable from the camera angle. Tyler turned toward him. Even from that distance, I could read the instant change in his posture. Recognition. Challenge. Mistake. I looked from the monitor to Daniel. He is injured. Yes. And he still went out there. Daniel finally looked at me, and there was something almost grim in his face now, something that felt less like strategy and more like certainty. Miss Bennett, he said quietly, men like Adrian Romano do not step into a hallway for pride. My pulse kicked hard against my ribs. I stared back at the grainy screen where Adrian stood facing the man who had made my life feel small for far too long. Then why did he do it? Daniel's answer came low and immediate. Because your former boyfriend just became personal. For one suspended second, nobody on the security screen moved. Adrian stood in the center of the 7th floor hallway like he had stepped there by choice and not through pain, not through betrayal, not with blood still drying beneath a white shirt I had pressed gauze against with shaking hands. Tyler faced him from 10 feet away, shoulders tight, chin lifted with the brittle confidence of a man who had spent too long mistaking intimidation for strength. The 2 men near the suite door shifted first, their attention breaking toward Adrian in a way that told me everything I needed to know. He was the center of gravity now. Not them. Not Tyler. Him. Can they hear this? I asked Daniel, my voice so thin it hardly sounded like mine. No, he said. Only see. It felt cruel somehow, watching in silence. Tyler said something then, sharp and quick, one hand slicing through the air in that familiar way that used to make me apologize even when I had done nothing wrong. Adrian did not react. He did not step back. He did not rush forward. He only stood there with that impossible stillness that made everyone else look frantic by comparison. Even on a grainy black and white monitor, he looked like control given human form. Why is no one moving? I whispered. Daniel's eyes stayed on the screen. Because they are waiting to understand who has the authority. And they just did. One of the men near the suite door lowered his head slightly toward Adrian. Subtle but unmistakable. Recognition. Loyalty. Tyler must have seen it too because his whole body changed. The anger stayed, but certainty vanished. He turned half toward the elevator bank like he was considering retreat, then squared himself again as though pride had caught him by the collar and dragged him back. I knew that feeling. Not the pride. The trap of it. The need to keep standing in the wrong place because leaving would feel like losing. Adrian took one measured step forward. Tyler answered by stepping back. Just one pace, but it hit me harder than anything else had that night. Because suddenly the story I had been telling myself for 2 years cracked straight down the middle. Tyler was not powerful. He was loud. He was persistent. He was frightening in private because I had been alone enough to let him become large in my mind. But standing across from a man who carried real authority without raising his voice, Tyler looked exactly what he was. Small. Miss Bennett, Daniel said gently, and I realized only then that my hand was covering my mouth. On the screen, Adrian said something. I could not hear it, but Tyler's reaction was immediate. His face tightened. His shoulders dropped a fraction. Then, to my astonishment, he looked down the hallway toward the camera, toward the direction where I had once been hidden, and whatever he saw in his own imagination seemed to drain the fight out of him all at once. He turned away first. Not running. Not yet. Just stepping back toward the elevator with the stiff, brittle posture of someone realizing too late that he had walked into a world where his old methods meant nothing. The second man followed. Then the third. Adrian remained where he was until the elevator doors closed. Only then did he lift one hand to his side. Just for a second, the first visible sign that staying upright was costing him anything at all. My chest tightened so suddenly it almost hurt. He should not be standing, I said. Probably not. Daniel answered. Another figure entered the frame from the far stairwell then, moving fast and direct. Luca, I guessed immediately, though I had never seen him before. He reached Adrian, said something urgent, and Adrian waved him off with a patience that looked dangerously thin. Then, as if he felt it somehow, Adrian turned his head toward the security camera. Toward me, impossible as that was. I knew he could not actually see me through the monitor. Knew it was chance, angle, timing. But the instant his face lifted, those green eyes finding the camera lens with that same terrifying steadiness they had used on me in the suite, I forgot the room around me. Forgot Daniel. Forgot the stairwells and service corridors and every rule I had made to survive. There was only the man who had stepped into danger while injured because Tyler had said my name like he still owned it. Daniel exhaled slowly beside me. We should move before the hotel realizes how many private problems it is hosting tonight. I did not answer. I was still staring at the screen, at Adrian Romano standing under the corridor lights like he had personally informed the night that it did not get to take me back. Then the monitor flickered once, and the image cut to static.